welcome to another episode of Eagle Productions Respect. I'm Derek Renicky. Today we're going to dive into the war in Gaza. This war began on October 7th, 2023. I condemn Hamas in this attack. Hamas is in the wrong, and they viciously attacked Israel. It took place in the Gaza Strip, located in the southwestern part of Israel, towards the northeast of Egypt. On October 7th, 2023, the Palestinian Sunni Islamic group Hamas, which is an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization as designated by the U.S. government, attacked Israel. On October 7th, more than 1,000 individuals were murdered by Hamas. Those individuals were Israeli citizens and foreign nationals, including 46 U.S. citizens. There was also 251 hostages taken. As reported as of yesterday, at the time of this recording, on October 10th, 2025, BBC reported that it is presumed that Hamas has 48 hostages, and only 20 of those are assumed to be alive. Moreover, on October 7th, there was multiple reports, including video evidence of Hamas conducting sexual assault against the individuals that they captured, physical assault as well. There, no, you're good.
I realize this one doesn't have a card in it, so actually.
Oh, you're good.
See where I put that?
No, yeah, somewhere.
This is yours.
Actually, this one has a card in it.
Was it a card?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's fine. Okay, now it's much cooler.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. I'll make sure it's still
I'm a friend.
set up good and framed. Good. Okay. There's no left back out.
All right.
And then it's, you don't have to redo the whole thing, but if during any of that you want to be able to switch cameras, then you do have to redo the whole thing.
Okay, sweet. Sweet. Hello, welcome to another episode of Eagle Productions Respect. I'm Derek Renicky. Today we're going to dive into the war in Gaza. This war began on October 7th, 2023. Israel and the nations surrounding Israel, particularly the Arabian nations, because there's only Arabian nations surrounding Israel, have been at war for millennia. However, this particular war in Gaza began on October 7th, 2023. It's when the Palestinian Sunni Islamic terrorist group, Hamas, attacked Israel. The United States government has designated Hamas as a foreign terrorist organization, or an FTO. A terrorist organization is a group that uses terror to coerce individuals into what they want. And for the U.S. government to designate Hamas as a terrorist group, that already tells you the goals and motives of Hamas. They want to terrorize others to believe what they believe. Hamas is an evil organization. They are wrong in what they've done to Israel. Yes, Israel has made mistakes as well. Israel can improve. There's different communication and individual liberties. There's concerns about the judicial system of Israel. It's not a perfect nation, but it's a good nation. And it's by far the most successful and most economically diverse nation in the Middle East. It has been a success since it was established by President Truman after World War II in 1948. Palestine, on the other hand, which is a country, Well, it's not a country. It's alleged to be a country by supporters of it. The supporters claim it is a nation on the southwest part of Israel, by the Sinai Peninsula. However, it has not been internationally recognized since 1948. Hamas is a Sunni terrorist organization trying to destroy Israel. They are wrong in this attack. I condemn them. They are evil. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas attacked Israel. The results were 1,200 individuals were murdered, including children. Of those individuals, there were Israeli citizens and foreign nationals, including 46 U.S. citizens. It was reported that over 250 people were taken hostage. BBC reported as of October 10, 2025, from 251 hostages on October 7, 2023, to about 2 years later, there are just 48 hostages still under Hamas control. Presumably, only 20 of those 48 are alive. Hamas is an evil group. There is video footage and eyewitness reports of sexual assault that Hamas did towards the Israeli citizens that they captured. There's also reports of physical assault and of starvation and horrible treatment of these individuals. Moreover, there's reports, and I have to give credit to Senator Ted Cruz in his podcast called Verdict, that Hamas would have headquarters in children's primary hospitals and other hospitals as well. Where they're at the basement of the hospital, they would have their military bases and different headquarters throughout the region in the Gaza Strip. By the way, the Gaza Strip is in the southwestern part of Israel, and that is where this war is taking place. And Hamas will set up their different bases and military headquarters in these hospitals. Israel will target these to try and take out Hamas. And Israel will make a concerted effort to communicate to that region, because Israel controls the satellites in the region. They'll send a warning that at 4 o'clock p.m., as an example, they'll give a specific time, day and time, such as 4 o'clock on the afternoon of August 17th, 2025, we will bomb this region, evacuate the area. That'll give enough time for citizens to get out, and they'll target Hamas. Unfortunately, there has been great casualties in this. We're going to focus today on the peace negotiations and successes that have come as of late. In subsequent episodes, we'll dive more into the history of Israel and the region, as well as the October 7th attack that began this war. And to be clear, Hamas initiated this war. And yes, Israel has made mistakes. I don't agree with everything with the judicial system and all the policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu, but I do believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is a good man and a brave man. I do believe Israel is a good nation, a noble nation, and that we need to stand with them. Yes, we can hold them accountable and say, hey, your judicial system has improvements to be made, and there are different policies you can do towards the Palestinians that could help. With that said, they are a good nation, and what has the Palestinians and also Hamas has done to them is evil, and is by no way at all similar to the mistakes Israel has made. With that said, today we're going to focus on the great news that has come as of late. Beginning in August of 2025, about 2 years after the initial attacks began at the start of this war, both Qatar and Egypt presented a ceasefire proposal towards Hamas. Hamas agreed to that. And then about a month later, towards the end of September of 2025, advisor to President Trump, also his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Special Envoy to the Middle East, Michael Witkoff, met at the United Nations in New York City. And there they presented to the Qatar Prime Minister, whose name is Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, a 20-point plan from the Trump administration. Together they refined it. Then on September 23rd at the United Nations General Assembly, President Trump presented this 20-point plan to a roundtable of Arab leaders, and it was met with a plethora and ubiquitous amount of dialogue. Further refinement was done. After the United Nations meeting concluded, that week, around September 24th of 2025, Special Envoy Witkoff and Advisor Kushner stayed in New York City, and they drafted a plan that included an apology from Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, to Qatar, because on September 9th, 2025, Israel conducted an airstrike in Doha, a region in Qatar, targeting Hamas informants and individuals affiliated with Hamas. Those 5 targets were taken out. Unfortunately, a Qatar serviceman was also killed in these attacks. After that happened, Qatar pulled out of the peace negotiations because in August of 2025, they proposed the ceasefire that Hamas agreed to. Then after September 9th, when that airstrike was conducted, Qatar pulled out. Then after this apology that Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to on September 29th, 2025, and he did during a phone call from the Oval Office with President Trump in Washington, D.C., apologized to Qatar, and that was received warmly. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said, according to CBS News, that, quote, unintentionally, close quote, was the target conducted. Israel is not trying to take out Qatari servicemen unaffiliated with Hamas. With that said, Qatar has a history of funding Hamas, so it is a very complicated issue. And then on October 3rd, after that September 29th phone call, Advisor Kushner and Special Envoy Witkoff in Miami, Florida, conducted a phone call to discuss a hostage trade and further peace negotiations with Arab officials in the region. On October 5th, a few days after that, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt were able to bring both individuals from the Hamas side and individuals from Israel's side to a table to discuss a hostage release and also further peace negotiations. And that was conducted in the Egyptian city called Sharm el-Sheikh. It is a city on the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. In Sharm el-Sheikh, on October 8th, after the Israeli and Hamas individuals were brought to the negotiating table, Advisor Kushner and Special Envoy Witkoff arrived there. On October 8th, they put in over 20 hours of work. And I want to commend both President Trump, everyone involved in those negotiations from the Middle East, including individuals from Israel and Hamas, as well as Special Envoy Witkoff and Advisor Kushner for the incredible effort they did. I commend them, and we should be grateful for their service. So thank you to all those individuals involved. Great progress was made in that meeting. A prisoner exchange and hostage release was agreed upon. And it was in that meeting that phase 1 was implemented. It was agreed upon to be implemented, rather. The news has been talking about 2 phases. Phase 1 is the hostage release and also bringing the Israeli army back to a designated area in the region. And then after that has been implemented, phase 2, and this is from a unacknowledged Trump official who reported to CBS News that the phase 2 would be effectively a permanent ceasefire and further negotiations regarding the deployment of Israeli troops, the future government in the region, and other similar matters. Once that was agreed upon, Kushner and Witkoff met in Cairo with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to instruct him to conduct his part of the plan to ensure that phase 1 and phase 2 be implemented. And then they flew on October 9th to Tel Aviv, where they met with the cabinet meeting of Israel, including President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, and also other Israeli government officials and leaders. They were met with an applause, as CBS News reported. They were agreed on, and President Trump announced that hostages will be released. This is great news in the region, and that is the latest on the Gaza war and Israel. Thank you for watching another episode of Eagle Productions Respect. As we said last time, get ready because more episodes are coming. Hello, welcome to another episode of Eagle Productions Respect. It's been all over the news on the Trump administration fighting with state officials, particularly in Illinois. Governor Pritzker has chastised President Trump, saying that he is ruining democracy and not following his constitutional authority by deploying the National Guard in Illinois. The background is President Trump is doing his best to enforce federal immigration law, and he sent these federal officials, called ICE agents, to conduct deportations. Illinois officials have said that they will not protect ICE agents, particularly different law enforcement officers. President Trump has brought in the National Guard to Illinois to protect ICE agents. Governor Pritzker is arguing that Trump does not have the constitutional authority to do this. President Trump is saying that he does. In the U.S. Constitution, there is a part in it called the Supremacy Clause, where it says when there is a disagreement between federal law and state law, federal law is supreme over state law. For example, during the horrible Supreme Court decision Roe versus Wade in the 1970s, before that it was left to the states because the 10th Amendment in the Bill of Rights says if there is not authority specifically delegated to the federal government, such as Congress having the purse of government, the money of Congress, military, for example, then it's left to states. For example, speed limits. There's nothing about speed limits in the U.S. Constitution. Therefore, states have the authority to regulate speed in traffic. Therefore, the federal government put in the Supremacy Clause and the 10th Amendment to balance those two out. And when there is a disagreement between the two, the federal law outweighs that with the Supremacy Clause. President Trump is arguing that the executive government has the authority to enforce the law and that he is merely enforcing federal law, particularly federal immigration law. And since Illinois is not protecting the federal officers, he's deploying the National Guard to protect them. Governor Pritzker is arguing that Trump is interfering in state matters when he doesn't have any authority to do so. He also is concerned about reports regarding that the Trump administration is not respecting individuals' due process rights, as well as habeas corpus rights. Due process is that every individual has their day in court. They can share their side of the story. Habeas corpus is a check on the executive government. It's where the executive government must say and justify why they're holding an individual in custody. It is concerning that the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, who I have to say is a very intelligent and very successful woman who I agree with on nearly every single policy, made a huge error and very concerning error when she did not know what habeas corpus was. Moreover, the Trump administration has not communicated properly about giving due process to deported citizens or non-citizens. Supreme Court has ruled that citizens and non-citizens do have due process rights while they're being deported. They must have a day in court to appear in front of a judge and argue their side. President Trump and his administration have not articulated that during the 10 months of their administration. So that's giving weight to Governor Pritzker's side. But Trump has a law on his side with the Supremacy Clause and also precedents. Plessy versus Ferguson was a Supreme Court case in the 1890s that said that segregation was allowed. Then in the 1950s, Brown versus Board of Education overruled that, saying segregation is not allowed. The Arkansas governor in 1957 named Orville Faubus, he prohibited black students from entering public schools. He also deployed the Arkansas National Guard to enforce this. President Eisenhower, who was the United States president at the time, was apoplectic. He deployed the 101st Airborne to stop Governor Faubus and allow existing federal law to be in place. These black students were permitted to attend school. Then in the 1960s, Governor George Wallace of Alabama further defied Brown versus Board of Education. And he himself stood in front of the University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa and stopped African American students from registering for classes while they were qualified to attend the university and they earned the right to be there. President Kennedy stopped that and federalized the National Guard and force Governor Wallace to get out of the way and allow these black students to attend the University of Alabama. Similarly, President Trump has the authority to enforce federal law and have the National Guard to be deployed to protect these ICE agents. He has the authority under the Supremacy Clause. He has the authority under the federal immigration laws and the power that the U.S. Constitution grants him to enforce the law. And he has the precedence of both Brown versus Board of Education, what President Eisenhower did towards Governor Faubus, and what President Kennedy did towards Governor Wallace. President Trump is in the right here. However, I do agree with Governor Pritzker in the sense that due process must be respected, and we need habeas corpus to be respected as well and done. With that said, I do not agree with Governor Pritzker's policies in Illinois. He is in the wrong, and he must respect federal agents. But I do commend him for calling upon President Trump and his administration to better communicate due process and also better communicate habeas corpus. So what President Trump needs to do, communicate more clearly how due process is being respected, and secondly, how habeas corpus is being respected. If he does that and shows that his administration is respecting the civil liberties that every individual in the United States, citizen, and those who are being deported have the right to due process and habeas corpus, then I'll take any argument, any valid argument from Governor Pritzker's side and anyone lambasting President Trump, and that would make his side 100% correct legally, and that would provide the backing. That would provide there won't be any weight towards Governor Pritzker's side. Thank you for watching another episode of Eagle Productions Respect.
Nice.
Sweet.
Well done.
Dude, thank you. To be honest, I could probably knock out transferring the stuff and then like putting everything away. I think it's good now that since. You sure?
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Sweet. Well, we got 2 more episodes.
Go. For the win.
Because we're able to narrow it down, and I know there's a lighting in here. The only thing is just that $200 mic, and I'll do it.
Yeah, I can look into that mic a little bit. I want to see myself under this lighting.
Well, before I forget, do you have to take one picture of me?
Yeah.